right. When last we left off, the Left Stars had just finished their fight with an ancient storm crow after being dropped off on the Savanna Island via airship moments into your search for Aesop's family. After resting in the harsh winds and ever-changing temperatures, you guys were greeted with relatively uneventful travel, tracing a river southward towards where you perceived the center of the island to be. In an effort to be found, Mouse prepared and cast Skywrite several times, and were eventually met with Eridarin, a ranger captain of the recovery squad, who was in the middle of the night nearby fighting a group of elementals with a squadron of other Minotaur. Eridarin escorted you back to the recovery squad camp, where you briefly met with General Hardak, who seemed, for those of you who didn't know, seems to be in charge of the whole recovery squad operation. Hardak briefly questioned the party and heard about your fight against the Stormcrow, wherein you were then passed off to another captain, Captain Niana, who is going to show you and your party where to rest and recover. So it is it is late, not late night. The sun is about to set in the sky, and I believe the last weather roll, you guys had been rushing into the camp because there was storms brewing during the final sprint into the area. That sort of little bit of a rushed all hands on deck environment as you see a variety of Minotaurs scrambling around, battening down the tents, making sure all the supplies are secure against the winds, lighting various torches and setting a perimeter around the camp. It's sort of it's not quite the restful environment that you want it to be, but it seems very orderly as an effort is underway to make sure that everybody and everything is secure for the time being. Captain Niana, who Aesop knows, is a Minotaur woman with sort of a bright white nose and a kind face, and was sort of, you were handed into her care as you exit General Hardak's tent. And she says, "Weather's not looking good, but I can get you guys inside for the night at least. And we'll figure out what to do with you all in the morning."
It's nice to see you, Niana.
It's nice to see you as well. She sort of pauses for a moment. She's sort of considering where to put you. And go ahead.
Is that for your parents in this camp? Or
They should be. I haven't seen them yet here though, so I imagine they're in one of these tents, right, Niana? My parents are with you guys.
I will find.
Mm.
Let me get you situated, and I'll retrieve your mother.
Thank you.
Follow me. And she sort of bobbing and weaving between various tents, ends up, I'm just going to drag you to one of them. They're all sort of laid out in random ways within Foundry, but it seems like the tents are designed to either store supplies or be sort of a shelter to the storm. And she sort of just sets you all up in this tent that is sort of adorned with various boxes and stuff, and says, "You all should be fine in here for now. Is there anything you need? Is there anything I can get for you?"
I'm fine.
No.
for the moment, this is certainly much nicer than being out there. So
I was about to say.
Sure. Okay. Settle in. I'll return shortly. And she
Also, just wanted to check in. Jacob, not Drada. Is anyone else still seeing a game paused symbol?
Oh,
up
sorry.
on-
I forgot to hit spacebar. It should be
Great,
gone
love
now.
that. Cool.
She sort of nods, sort of acknowledges each of you, and her eyes land on Aesop before she releases the fabric of the tent enclosure and seems to trundle out into the storm.
Great. Great. Okay. Yeah, everything's fine. Yeah. She was totally able to answer that question. Yeah, everything's good. I'll take that
Really-
space over there. I'm just gonna set everything down. Whew, okay.
I mean, like, I don't know. Before, we had no idea where your parents could be, and we're also in the elements. Now there is canvas around us, and we are closer
Yeah.
to finding parents. Like, this
Yeah.
feels like a not definitive win, but a win nonetheless.
Trying to keep telling
better than
myself
we
that.
were.
Yes. Yeah, we're definitely better than we were. You're right.
Well, and I'm sure your mom will clear up any questions.
I have her stuff here too, so I bet she'll probably want that if they're gonna stay here longer. Okay, breathe.
Klax is just sort of getting everything sort of not getting packed or not unpacking supplies or anything, but just sort of getting settled in.
I get our bed rolls out and things like that. Is this how much of a tent versus like a building is this?
So they seem to be like heavy canvas tents that are certainly able to withstand the winds, but that probably require maintenance to keep them from flying away. So it's sort of like being in a dust storm in Afghanistan. Like there's a lot of they aren't the most building buildings.
It's way better cover than we've had before, though, so it's a win.
Yeah. Aesop, do you need anything right now?
I think we all just need some rest. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great.
About somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes pass as you're just sort of settling in, and you know that like the frantic nature of the storm, it's that, you know, if Niana is retrieving your mother, that it's sort of like there's probably a few items on the checklist first to attend to in this situation that that you know that there's still a little bit of time before the dust will settle, so to speak. But another 5-10 minutes, and you see the one of the other side openings of the tent, sort of the fabric be pushed upwards, and you all see a kind of like middle-aged Minotaur woman who is more lightly dressed than the rest of the soldiers you've seen on the battlefield. A little bit, I would say, more gaunt, not in a way to suggest that she is frail or anything, but in the sense that she's older, who sort of peeks her head under the fabric with a concerned expression. And Aesop, you see your mother, Murda, for the first time in, I would imagine, at least a season or two. And she says, Aesop? And she...
Hi, Mom. Kind of just walk up to her, and as she's entering, I'll just give her a hug as soon as she, like, steps in and, like, put my head on her shoulder, trying not to cry. Oh, good. We're fine. Not emotionally withdrawn at all.
She, sort of in the shock of the moment, does, like, maybe in a slight disbelief that you're here. It takes a second for her to react, but she'll grip you tightly as well after a few seconds and says, I didn't think I would see you again in some time. It's good to see you.
It's nice to see you too, Mom. I actually have stuff for you. I've been in consonance for a little while, and that's how I knew that you guys were gone. And I brought this back, and I'll like take out the armor and her weapons, whatever she left at home. I'll kind of just have it in my hand.
I think those were in the bag of holding, potentially, but you flint, yeah, or they had been pulled out in advance or something. And she just says, she sort of takes them, but then puts them to the side for a moment and says, like, a look of gratitude on her face, but just a little confusion as well.
I didn't know if you needed it or not. You guys haven't been back for some time, so thought there was some need to bring it along.
Well, thank you. I hope to not need it, but I suppose it's always good to have on hand. She sort of is looking at you up and down. How long do you think it has been since you've seen her?
Well, right after I graduated university, I kind of was on the road because I had no ties back to the recovery squad except my parents, and they were supposed to be retired. So I would probably say like a year and a half.
And Aesop is only like 21 or something like that.
I would say roughly my age.
Okay. She just sort of like, she smiles in a way that is familiar to you and says, you're all grown up. I mean, you were before, but to be coming out here, I guess I just didn't I didn't expect your adventures to expand out this far so quickly.
Well, neither did I, but we're a good team. Everyone, this is my mother, Merida Tiernan. This
Hello.
is the Left Stars.
Hi.
Left Stars?
You have a lovely home.
Thank you.
We've been camping out at the house. Hope you don't mind.
Oh, of course, you're welcome. And what brings you here? It's of course good to see you.
Well, I found out that you guys were late coming back, and I just kind of got nervous and scared, and the Left Stars wanted to fall behind me, so we all came together.
Well, I'm glad you all made it safe, and I appreciate you traveling with my son. Sort of looks at each of you individually. You've come to a dangerous place. I imagine you've discovered that.
And we fought one of those crows, those giant storm crows. Not fun.
Niana mentioned something like that, and I'm glad to find you in one piece when I came to this tent. Well, she looks a little lost in what to say. Um, but she takes a second and says, "It was never our intention to stay this long, but uh, there are some logistical issues that, well, being frank, it's nothing that you can't or shouldn't know, but it's just the general has ways of communicating information out to the troops, and it's generally not my place to interfere with that chain of command. But long story short, is there's a couple issues getting back right now.
I mean,
roll me an insight check, Aesop and one other.
I can take that.
Sure.
to say either of the two of you are going to be better at that than me.
Pretty good. Maybe.
There's something she's nervous about, but you don't know. It's hard to pinpoint what it is.
I mean, we did come here to help. We've had pretty good luck, you know, with dealing with some elemental issues in Horizon and some other places. But yeah, it doesn't seem like anybody wants to tell us quite what's going on yet. Is there a best way to go about asking that of the general or someone else?
We don't want to like intrude, but also we have managed to survive so far, which has been pretty cool, and would love to be of help.
Very challenging, but we made it.
I'm sure the general would be receptive to a conversation. We have she sort of like acknowledges the entire party, not just you, Aesop, and says we do have a contingent of a group that we refer to as unhindered, that are non-Minotaur soldiers that are sometimes recruited to help us with our work. That's the simple version of it. They're technically part of the order, but and so you would certainly be, if you have proven to hold your own out there in the dunes, then I imagine that argument could be made. I think the question that Hardak would ask is, why? And I say that just sort of, I don't know how much Aesop has sort of told you or really learned during his time as an apprentice, but the nature of our work is, it's a dedication that many people here have committed their lives to, and it's generally not one that we pass that danger on to others unless they have that same level of commitment. And we take great strides to keep everybody alive if they take that oath and take that danger upon themselves.
I mean, I don't know anything about an oath, but, you know, I think we're all kind of looking to, you know, improve the world where we can. And um, this seemed like, you know, as good a place to start as any.
I
But
mean, we are.
we had a conversation with Hardak, that the general's name. It's a few of us. I mean, a few of us know magic. I mean, me and Mouse over here, we can heal people, pretty well. And I mean, it's been brought up that, like, if y'all need help talking to some of these conflicts, if they even are receptive to it, which it might not be. I do know Primordial. I have tried with the Stormcrow, but that didn't get anywhere. But it was also mentioned that we implement some of our magic into the ships, which that might seem to be one of the logistical issues you're talking about.
You've learned Primordial in college?
I did.
Oh. Impressive. Of course, I knew that you would be capable of it, but that is a rare thing, and it may be something that Hardak could be convinced by. The only other among us is Captain Foundry, who is predisposed in trying to refuel the ships, and so she has not been able to travel outside of the camp. As best as I understand, she had been a part of some of the early missions, but when encountering similar difficulties in communicating as you have, the decision was made to hold her here and to exhaust her spells into the as the DM is looking up the name of the ship, into the God, I had it into one of the ships.
Quick thing. We, may not be dedicated in the sense that we are here to sign a contract that keeps us with you for the rest of our lives. As someone under the age of 20, that's horrifying. However, we are in a commitment to help each other, and that means helping Aesop. And if Aesop's people and the people he cares about are in need of assistance, it feels reasonable for us to be here. Also, everyone keeps sleeping on me. I also speak Primordial. Like, I'm not as good as Aesop, but, like, you have a second person who can talk with these things.
I'm so sorry. Aesop would know that. I forgot.
Maybe it's on me for not bringing it up that often, but it's fine.
Yeah.
I know some things have been said about using magic to help these ships. Are the ships nearby? If we're gonna go to bed, I could maybe help a little before we do.
So can I.
I suppose
Tiny
if
little
I suppose if you are set to rest after your encounter with a Stormcrow, then now is as good of a time as any, or first thing tomorrow. She sort of indicating that the long this is above board, but the 2-day long rest, you can sort of exhaust your spell slots anytime during that and still get the full recovery at the beginning of the 3rd day.
Okay, so even here in town.
Well, this is in town. It is a 2-day long rest.
Yeah, this allows us to do the.
Yeah, this is the safe haven.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Also,
Yeah,
DM
tomorrow's fine.
Thunderhorn or Windrunner for the probably ships you're thinking of.
Let me get back to you.
Okay.
I scrolled past it and I just have to find it again.
I also say I think, we have magic and, these two speak Primordial, but we also kind of sort of have some weird relations with the Earth Elementals and maybe sort of the Air Elementals.
I don't know if that will be the case here, unfortunately.
I don't know, but, it's complicated, but we did some work for art, essentially.
I'll look at my mom and be like, there's a lot to catch up on.
And you look at your mom and she has no recognition of this. Like, the average, like, people who know Primordial are a little bit more in the know about the elemental pantheon, you imagine. Like, your foot soldier is committed to the cause but doesn't have like the level of study and knowledge about everything that the elementals are about. So you look at your mother, and and after saying the word "ard," she has no recognition.
Yeah, first generation college student, so.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, if you all want to rest, I can find you in the morning, or I think the captain, Captain Niana, is supposed to bring you back to Hardak at some point tomorrow, just to sort of complete a debrief. But I'm sure, I'm positive that any help you can give when it comes to refueling the ships will be most welcome. It has been the short version of what I will tell you is that when we flew into the storm, something seems to have rapidly exhausted the fuel stores that we had come in with, and so the nature of it is that we were hoping to send at least one ship back to the mainland just to get the resources to bring back so that we could sort of quickly refuel the fleet once the mission's complete. But we've been a little landlocked in the interim. That's the short version. There's more to it, but...
Well, that might be the best place for us to start. And we'll have time together, hopefully tonight or in the next 2 days, to catch up, because there's a lot to catch up on.
The ship is and your mother would have said this, it was the Storm Chaser, Captain Niana's ship.
Oh, okay.
And she, just rewinding a bit, she would have said that Captain Niana was supposed to bring the apprentices back home, just because things are escalating here.
I see.
And so she was gonna do a run, not only to transport them home, but also to bring back supplies.
Fair.
Well,
sorry, but I thought, don't you want to know what happened to your dad?
I was gonna talk about that at a different point, but I'm assuming Dad is out there, predisposed and occupied with something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Roll me one more insight check.
I feel like I don't need to, but I will anyway. Oh, it's almost a 20, so maybe I did need to roll this and fail. Okay.
I'll let, because Mouse asked the question, I'll let Mouse roll. So
yes, come on, Mouse.
So much better.
Right, I mean, two better than me.
I mean, she's still displaying some amount of nerves from before.
Yeah.
You're not able to get more than that, but she says, I'm sure you guys could use a little bit of rest. I'm happy to tell you what I can tomorrow, and I think yes, we'll speak tomorrow. It's good to see you. And she sort of hugs you again, and sort of looks towards everybody and says, "And good to meet all of you. I know that we may be a strange people to you in how close we are with each other and how much we're not really upfront and sharing, but the General has everything under control, and we just sort of are following his lead out of this storm, so I'm sure...
This might go into the insight roll I rolled earlier, but do I believe her in terms of, like, the General has everything under control?
I'd say between the two insight rolls you've made, you think at minimum she's choosing to believe that,
Okay.
but it's possible that you don't have it high enough to roll to know if
Yeah.
she's doubting it or not.
Yeah. Keeping a facade of optimism for herself and
Yeah.
towards me. Yeah.
Yeah. But you don't it's possible there's some doubt there, but you're not sure.
Okay.
And she just sort of pauses for a moment before just to see if anybody has any final comments or words, but then turns around and exits the tent. And she does grab her stuff on the way out.
Okay.
You see that she very carefully eyes it and then chooses to pick it up and walk out with it.
Always dedicated to the job. Well, that was my mother. Very lovely woman. Ex-merc. Shockingly enough. Yeah.
What do you think's going on with your dad? He's probably just out on like one of those patrol groups, like the group that picked us up.
Yeah.
Wait, remind me what your dad's background is again? What does he do?
He was former general, if I'm remembering his backstory correctly. Former general, retired, but can't step away from the light too far.
He's fine. He's fine.
...
Yeah. Literally.
So in this environment, you don't necessarily have to take watches, but if you want to have nighttime conversations, or should you choose to take watches anyway, you are certainly welcome to. So I will open up that opportunity to you. At some point, somebody does just a sort of like random minotaur who doesn't really introduce themselves or greet you in any particular way. It's sort of coming by with hot stew, and sort of handing out rations for folks within the camp to enjoy.
Sorry, Clax, it's vegan.
He just starts digging into some of the leftovers that Blossom's packed.
Just asking this random minotaur that stops by, is it fine for us to wander camp, or should we very much stay in here? What's kind of the protocol here?
She looks at you, and this is just between all the other minotaur here. They're dressed in they're all dressed in like breastplates. A lot of the women have this like faceplate as well, just because that's what came up on the portrait I made. But she sort of like raises it and looks to you and says, "Civilians are welcome to do as they please, but you should stay out of the command tent." And then she, seeing you nod your head, she walks away.
I don't know that Flint would be necessarily trying to like take a watch per se, but would maybe spend the sort of equivalent time of a watch before resting, just doing a lap of the encampment and just sort of kind of gauging roughly what's set up here and what people are doing and making sure he's comfortable with their watch, which, judging by how many minotaurs I see on the map, I think he probably very much is confident in their sort of setup here. But
I think similarly, Drada is perhaps before Zonkin out. Yeah, going through a quick stroll just to get acquainted with the layout of the camp, but also going by kind of getting close to some of the tents and listening in and seeing if they can hear any conversations that are happening throughout. And pick up just we've been given a very like presentational view of what's going on without a lot of information. But if Drada can hear anything that maybe he's not supposed to hear.
Okay. I will say for Drada's sake that the camp is relatively well lit.
That's fine. I think it's just a stroll, and like, if he happens to hear something, he might linger for a little while.
Okay. I would put that in the more of a perception roll than a stealth roll then. And sorry, Flint, is there anything in particular you're looking to learn or perceive, or is it just sort of like getting a general lay of the land?
General lay of the land, seeing how thorough their watch and whatever looks like. Yeah.
Okay. I'll say for Flint's sake to start, they have a very orderly way of doing things, and it's sort of in the first portion of the night that as the storm calms down a little bit. I guess I didn't make anybody roll weather, so I'm just going to say the storm calms down for this portion at least. As the storm calms down a little bit, you see that the watches are not very conversational. They are not really like standing next to each other, but there's a pretty firm perimeter around the camp with very attentive guards who are, or soldiers rather, who are sort of monitoring the distance and are very fixed in their positions. I would say like before you end up turning in for the night, you would see that like all these hammocks that are set up on the perimeter of the camp, you actually don't see any Minotaur during your patrol that are really indoors at this moment, or at least are resting indoors. It seems that the only real beds in the camp are the hammocks outside. And that when you sort of witness a rotation, it is basically a member of the recovery squad like tapping somebody on one of these hammocks and just trading positions with them. There seems to be an intention to keep everybody at the perimeter, which you would perceive to be sort of like, in case something happens, they want everybody nearby at a moment's notice.
Do they all look, and I don't know like Minotaur physiology that closely, I'm sure, but like, do they all look relatively healthy? Like, it doesn't look like anybody's just emaciated or
Give me an insight check with it's a pretty low DC, I think. I'm only making you roll because you might be tired. Yeah, with a 15, everybody who's in the camp seems to be healthy. You imagine that their discipline towards how they're doing this watch is in an effort to keep themselves in tip-top shape. They're trading off pretty regularly and making sure that everybody can rest.
Yeah, I would just head back then.
Okay. Drada with a 20. Where sort of are you doing like a scan of the entire camp? Is there any particular person you're looking for, or
No, I think like looking at the map, I think he's kind of bobbing and weaving kind of in this like ring in between some of the tents and just walking, getting a sense of how large the camp is, and also trying to listen in a bit.
Okay. Sort of from the command tent, this larger tent in the middle, what you, without lingering too long, you kind of pick up during this portion of the night the familiar voice of Hardak, who seems to be talking to a more like erudite, feminine voice. Somebody who you don't recognize, who seems to be reporting on the progress of refueling the ships. And at one point during the conversation, hold on. At one point during the conversation, she says, if these new guests have sufficient arcane abilities, perhaps we could refuel the Storm Chaser within the next 5 days. 10 days, perhaps, depending on how capable they are. And Hardak sort of responds and says, and that will be enough to make the round trip, or just the trip back to the city? And she responds by saying, just the initial trip, but with sufficient funding, I'm sure we can get squared away at the skyport. There's sort of like a grumbling on the inside from the voice that you imagine to be Hardak's, and says, I'm not even sure that there's anything that Consonance can do to help us. Is the trip even worthwhile? And she says, you're the general. That's the point where you sort of walk by. So you sort of like see a torch coming through one of the alleyways in these tents, and you duck around the corner so as to not be seen as lingering in this moment. And you are out of earshot of the rest of the conversation.
Great. I mosey my way back home to the tent. It's like, hey, so I definitely wasn't eavesdropping on anyone, and just so happened to hear. Also, I'm saying this making sure, I'm making sure there's no one immediately nearby when I come in and then walk in.
Side Hydrata, just.
I want to say that Clax just passed out because he feels safe.
Great. I love that for Clax.
Great.
Drata will be joining him soon. They're talking about, Hardak is talking about us in the context of, if we helped out, they could theoretically maybe get their ship going again in like 5 to 10 days. It'd just be enough to get back to Consonance. He seemed unsure of the value of that and what Consonance could do, but it's good to know that, I don't know, if we were to do something, some action could come of it. Also, it'd still keep us here 5 to 10 days. I also know.
I mean, they could ask for more soldiers, but from whom? And if they would even want more soldiers to come out here.
Roll a history check as well, Aesop. Just sort of as you're positing that.
History. I'll take it. Making that 21.
On my screen, the dice was like balanced on the tip, and I didn't even know what number it was on. There's probably, you imagine, in an order like this, some shame that would come from asking for help as well. Like, this is a duty that is entrusted to the recovery squad, and to ask for outside soldiers when the entire army is here, it would be a little bit of like an admission of defeat, and that hasn't really happened in your time that you're aware of.
I don't think resources would be a detriment to them. They just have to get back somehow. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think it would help if we knew the actual, like, danger here on the island. Like, what they're not telling us. You know what I mean?
Why aren't they telling us though? Like, what are we gonna do with information other than help? Like, it seems odd to be secretive, doesn't it?
It does. Maybe they're trying to, like, protect us from knowing something. But that might turn out to be more dangerous than they initially realized, especially if we stay. I agree with you, Mouse. Something is weird about that.
Things funky, but I mean, it doesn't sound to me like we'd want to. If we helped power the ship back up, it sounds like we want to stay for a while, but we have the option of going back if we want to.
Should we go back?
I mean, so far half of our goal of finding both of your parents has been achieved.
It doesn't seem like things are going well here. And it seems like we should at least try and understand why before we completely get out of here. See if there's anything we can do to help, or send, help from back, on the mainland.
Mouse, what do you think?
It's hard to say. I think we've offered our help, but they don't really seem to want it. Whereas Avendir has asked for our help. And so, while this situation seems more dire, I want to go where we're needed.
That's fair. I do feel like you said, I think it was you try to, like, half our goal was completed. My mother's doing fine, maybe just emotionally distraught with everything that's happening, and I assume that my father is okay. Very hearty man. Didn't get any of that.
It may occur to you as you're thinking through these things that I'm not going to make you roll for this. I think you guys, your characters are very keen on the calendar of things, but if it would take 5 days to get off this island, you think Avendir will have already left Consonance by the time you arrive. Like, linking up with Avendir would be difficult unless you could unless you could leave today or tomorrow.
I say we wait and see what they have to say in the morning. Like, we've presented what we can do, and I hope we can help. And hopefully they can tell us what they need.
Yeah. I think we all need a good night's rest. Out of the elements, thankfully. Just wish they'd, like, accepted help, you know? Minotaurs just stubborn asses.
How well funded are they? Like, where's...
They are pretty funded. As far as I'm aware, if they're requested to go on a mission, they are pretty well stockpiled for said mission. That is, if the time frame of their mission goes as planned.
Yeah, I would only amend that statement, and because I think you would know this. They're not so well funded that they're all bedecked with legendary magic items or anything, but they are given the supplies that they need to operate, to do the job. Kind of like a government agency. I know that Flint and Flint and Drada did a lap around camp, but is there anything that Aesop or Mouse would do before going to rest?
Mouse is staying securely in the tent, and she will spread out her star map and just sort of as like more of a like soothing and comfort exercise. Just kind of retrace some of her favorites and think through some of her favorite legends.
Sure. Do you want to roll me a d10? I'll see which one of these joyous stars I'll tell you about.
I will say I am still afraid, so I'm explicitly not going outside.
Yes. I'm trying to think of which one. Oh, wait. Okay. I'm choosing to give you a different number. So I'm invalidating your roll because the one that you rolled is probably not one of your favorites. So if you're explicitly looking at your favorites, I'm giving you a new one. There is one that you find a little bit of comfort in, referred to as the Midnight Mirage. It is on your map. It is sort of like a star that is sort of appears in three places and almost like in different levels of opacity, almost kind of like depicting a pendulum of a star that's like going from one area to the other. According to legend, the Midnight Mirage is a star that can only really be seen by those who have lost their way. And it's sort of meant to be a guide to sort of steer people back to their true path with its elusive light. It's just something you think about. You think if you were to spot it in the night sky, as opposed to on a piece of paper, there might be something to learn from that were you to believe in the legends, but unfortunately just sort of staring down at your star map, there's only so much you can get.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Aesop, anything?
I will stay inside with Mouse and take out my book, which I haven't totally done since we've been here, of course, because the wind and the elements and yada yada yada, and kind of like draw over the scene of me and my mom reconnecting, like the silhouettes of both of us in a hug.
All right. Somebody roll me a d20 so we can see what sort of weather you wake up to.
Sure.
You guys gotta roll higher. So I
think we have any? I don't have agency in this. I just hit a button.
This random event table. Nobody has rolled. I think of the 10 rolls you've done, give or take, you've rolled over 10 one time. Can you roll me a d10 on top of that? Incredible. Because you are in a safe haven, you are able to avoid the dangers of the lightning that is still striking down all around you. But you sort of wake up in a... Like, some people might find comfort sleeping to thunderstorms, but it's a little bit different when they are crashing next to you every couple minutes. And it is not extremely restful. But you are sheltered enough to avoid the danger of it. And so you will wake up to the sound of a lightning strike that is a little too close for comfort. But you see that beyond the storm, like as you just sort of peek outside of the tent, beyond the storm clouds, there is a shimmer of low light that is dawning on the horizon. As you all wake up, and you can take a short rest for the time being, if you would like. If you stay here another night, you will be able to take a long rest.
Just confirming, I stay frightened until a long rest?
No, it was just for the day. Yeah, so this is a new day.
A new day.
Sort of assuming my Eldritch Cannon does not come back on these short rests.
It does not. Yeah, I checked.
Yeah, I think for some reason I had it still had a charge. I'm not sure why, but I've definitely used it. Well, should we go try and figure out what the heck's going on with your dad and figure out where this airship is?
Yeah. If someone doesn't turn up to the tent in the next few minutes, I say we should walk over there.
You guys probably spend, just because like Mouse has to sit down and prepare spells, and so does Flint in theory, whether you just carry over your prepared spells or not. So you generally spend at least an hour hanging out in the morning.
I know I won't get it today, but Flint does spend some amount of time over the next, or over the last day and today and whatever, working on a different infusion.
Okay. During this short preparation period in the morning, you do see Captain Niana sort of poke her head in, and just sort of the cautious approach of somebody who's not sure if you're sleeping in or not. But realizing that you're awake, she just sort of like perks up a bit and says, "Oh, early risers, I see."
Good morning.
Good morning. Well,
Are we off to see Hardak, or is there another plan?
Hardak would like to. Yes, Hardak would like to hear your report, but if you need some more time to get prepared, there's no rush.
I'll look around. I think we're ready. Mouse, you prepared all your spells?
Just finishing up.
Let me touch up my makeup and then we're good to go.
Very well. I'll be back in just a few minutes. I'll let him know. And she nods to just sort of set up the meeting.
I had the realization.
Know about this general before we go, Aesop? That you haven't already shared?
Unfortunately, I don't know much about the guy. Let me go to my notes. He's been in power for a little while, as general, and very respected. Likes to keep a tip-top shape around, like, organizationally, so like very high standards when it comes to efficiency. Yeah. So I can understand why he would be uncomfortable with asking for help, as that would also probably damage his reputation. I don't see why, but that's how he would probably take it as.
So we should just do it anyways. That's what you're saying.
I mean, if we decide to go back to consonants, they don't really control us, so fair.
I'm not putting words in Aesop's mouth, but I would just say, for something Aesop would think as well, is that just being a very orderly person, it's difficult to introduce new elements to the plan. So it's sort of like they have standard operating procedures, and you're not a part of that, but that doesn't mean you couldn't be. if that makes sense. Jacob, I think one of us had interrupted you.
Oh, I was just going on and being like, well, Drada was sure in a sandstorm for 3 days straight. A full face of makeup. That probably looks bad. And I'm imagining just like you can see the grains of sand kind of embedded in the face paint a little bit. So yeah, they take a moment to scrub up. And it's a very simple beat, but it's a beat nonetheless.
Fully exfoliated.
I imagine this might be the first time that the party has seen Drada's like makeup routine in person, because like normally you would find a private space to do all this, or like you'd have your own room or something like that. Am I wrong?
Probably. Yeah, it's
I'll watch.
all that feeling
Just
the
sit
criticism
there.
in advance.
Nope, I'm not saying anything. I'll watch.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Drada's like unmaked up face, like it's pale. It's not as like shockingly white as the paint they put on, but like it is definitely a little bit rounder and kinder almost. The paint exaggerates features a fair bit. Yeah, I think maybe subtly within the makeup, or there's a line or two that almost suggest horns, because we got to be on theme.
Right.
Like the little touch of horn you added to your makeup.
Thank you. I'm glad you could pick that up. Thank you.
Oh.
You wear makeup?
Mouse tries to adjust 2 twigs in her hair to make horns too.
Yeah, everyone, you get twigs, and you get a twig, and you get a twig.
Flint, would you like some twigs to add some horns to your hair?
I think I'm good.
I have horns. So I think I'm set on that.
I think Klax has horns like already too. Just they're not big minotaur horns, but
Flint, you're gonna be the only one.
I don't think twigs count as a horn.
Jada, you look very nice today.
Thank you.
Eventually Niana pulls open. Like there's still thunderous madness outside, but eventually the tent pulls open and she says, "General's expecting you. Whenever you're ready."
I think we're ready.
All right. And she'll escort you just a few tents down towards the command tent. The environment is a little less hectic now that everything has been sort of tied down, but the morning of, like, it's clear that, like you, nobody's gotten a perfect rest last night at the events of the weather. So there's like people who are trading in and out of watches, and people with just a sort of like an expression on their face of like trying to be stalwart and remain at the ready, but nonetheless are weathered by what's happening here. Like this is just like sort of like the surface insight. Everybody is still fully functional and attentive, but you can tell that like they are not enjoying a long rest every night, just as you are not as well. It's the same expression that you see on each other's faces that you can see on theirs. But eventually you're brought to the command tent, and you Niana walks you in, but as you enter you see both Hardak and Murda sort of standing around the table. Murda is sort of just like, she acknowledges you all entering as she's just sort of staring down at the map, but then sort of sees you come in and smiles a little bit. Aesop says, "Good morning."
Morning.
I didn't Well, it's been a while since I've been able to see you all like this. I hope that you slept well.
Didn't help that there was, lightning strikes coming from possibly 10 feet away, but here we are.
She looks like she's about to react in a playful way before Hardak sort of interrupts and says, "You'll get used to it if you stick around." Good morning.
Good morning.
Eridarin shared more details about your journey here and what he knew of your battle with the Stormcrow. I hear that you all also helped him and his soldiers in dispatching some hostile elements. So your participation so far has been noted and is certainly appreciated.
We're here to help.
Murda speaks up and says, and two of them can speak. What is it?
Primordial, yes.
Primordial. Yeah, two of them can speak Primordial.
Yeah.
And he sort of perks up a bit and says, "Is that so?"
College taught me well. Didn't have much use for it afterwards until I ran with these folks, and shockingly enough, we've had our own elemental adventures before we came here.
Is there activity on the mainland?
Some. Nothing too dangerous as this.
I mean, the work we did for Horizon with Ard and Ludum was pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
Not to this scale.
Right. We encountered some higher earth elementals, one of them being corrupted, and we had to dispatch them.
Around the table between Niana, Murda, and Hardak, there's just sort of like a synchronized eyebrow raise of people who are trying to discern what it is that you're saying. Hardak says, "Well, certainly, if nobody contacted us, it must have been minor enough to have them call us out of here, I suppose. But something we can follow up on when we return, perhaps."
It was super recent, so you might honestly not have gotten the message.
We will put in an inquiry when we get back, but in the interim, have you spoken to any primordials since your arrival here?
I tried. When we landed, we got attacked by a Stormcrow, and seeing as how it was very large, trying to take the more diplomatic route, and it kind of just phased through, almost like it heard what I said, but it just either didn't want to listen or something else is controlling it. Kind of just kept attacking us.
He pauses for a moment and he's sort of like patrolling the room and starting to like inspect the glaives that are on the weapon racks. Sort of the sort of position of somebody who's deep in thought and is kind of keeping their hands busy. And says, "Stormcrows are generally more intelligent than the average elemental. We've had few interactions with them before this island, but I know that Captain Foundry has spoke of one that she had been able to communicate with in the past, and so we've come across similar issues on this island ourselves and are under the belief that the elementals here have either had their minds made inert in some way or that they are being controlled.
Fortunately, I don't know which route is scarier, to be honest.
It is a difficult choice to make, also, to not understand the breadth of their situation and to be forced to protect our own at the same time. Sometimes it feels like it might be the wrong decision to attack them, and yet it's the choice we have to make. But you say you wish to help. I should ask, what intentions do you have beyond help? What is your ambition in this regard? See, he's sort of looking at all of you, not just Aesop.
Isn't helping sort of the goal?
In the most altruistic of people, yes. That is not generally my expectation when I meet a stranger.
We're a little bit different. I don't want to speak for the whole group, but I'm not looking for anything other than to make sure you all are safe and balance is occurring in the world.
Are you looking to join the order?
Well, no.
Not something we'd really discussed. I don't think it's, we kind of already have a patron that we work for and serve, but granted, he, generally speaking, just wants us to see us, or wants to see us go out and do good things. We've considered starting our own adventuring guild or something, but really, we've just been sort of a close-knit party for a while now, and, the more we heard about the recovery squad and particularly Aesop's parents, the more we, wanted to come and help out and make sure things were okay. And it seems like things are a little rougher here than at least many back on the mainland's expected. So, whatever we can do to help.
He sort of pauses, hearing you, but then sort of turns towards Aesop and Drada to hear what you have to say as well.
Well, as we've mentioned before when we first met, seems like one of the ships going back home might be priority number one, and resources, they're going to dwindle eventually, so it would be probably a necessity at some point to get some more back in the mainland, main island. So we can put our resources there. A few of us are magic users, so we can definitely dump some spells into that, making it easier. Am I worried about what's possibly happening with my father? Yes, but as we all know, I think he's pretty hardy. Didn't really adopt much of that, but I'm capable in my own way.
When you mention your father, you see Hardak turn to Murda, and then she sort of turns to him and says, I didn't tell him. I was waiting for you to tell me it's okay. And then Hardak sort of like puts squinty eyes on her, and then turns to you and says, your father's missing. I'm sure he's fine, but
like just him or a whole squad?
He has a squad with him, yes. And of course, the lot of them are on my mind. Not just your father.
Of course.
I mean, would our time be better spent trying to go look for them?
We are conducting search operations that Captain Eridarin is leading. I think he left shortly after dropping you all off here, so I believe that operation continues. And what about you? He sort of turns to Drada.
I mean, I'm happy to be of help however you need it, and I'll stand behind Aesop and what he needs now, I guess.
It is difficult to know what to do with well-intentioned people sometimes. We have been canvassing this island to investigate the change that is occurring within it and have come up short in many ways. Your father had, he's sort of turning to Aesop, your father had led a scouting party to the southeast of the island, chasing a particular theory of his that he failed to communicate to me.
Sounds exactly like him.
And his former soldiers are loyal to the cause, but are also fiercely loyal to your father, and therefore they have been missing, as previously mentioned. Murda speaks up and says, it's not that he is looking to defy you, Hardak. It's just that he's used to being in command. And Hardak sort of gruffs a little bit at that comment. Kind of the sort of gruff that's like, let's not speak about this in front of our guests. And sort of turns back to you and says, and so I have a variety of soldiers maintaining this base so that we can all rest easy. I have some who are out looking for your father, and I have some stuck here attempting to refuel the ship. The ship that, at best, will return with the supplies to help us refuel the rest of our ships so that we can leave more quickly when this is all over. But at the pace we're going, that could be some time. And so he's sort of like trying to choose his words diplomatically, and is pausing for a moment and says, I cannot stop or give orders to civilians who wish to travel on this island and conduct their own business. But it would be unwise for me to not provide you with information that could help our mutual interests. To that end, if you wish to engage with what is happening outside of these tents, we can continue this conversation and find ways to help each other. But if you wish to return to the mainland, you are welcome to stay. although we may ask for your spell casting capabilities.
Fair.
Your mom also sort of speaks up and says, and because they speak primordial, and Niana speaks up and says, oh yeah, that's right, there was that one mission, and then Hardak sort of holds up a hand to them and says, if your son chooses to take his friends on a dangerous mission, then I will share more details about an opportunity that could help us.
Here, or outside of this island?
Here. Not in the camp, but to the east.
I think there's a lot to think about here. I just think we need today to think it over. If y'all agree, I'll look at the rest of the party.
We should probably talk it over. Maybe try and send Avendir a message. I think at the very least, no matter what we're doing, we're going to want to rest here for the night. And thus, we probably want to go ahead and, contribute whatever spells we can today to the ships.
That would be most helpful. Captain Niana can escort you and anybody who wishes to contribute. But let us discuss tomorrow morning. Let me know your decision, and we will move from there.
Thank you for being honest about the situation.
He nods, and then he nods to Niana, who starts to walk towards you in sort of an escort fashion, like the meeting is over. And she starts to walk you in a westward direction towards the ships. And at this point, let's roll another d20 to see what the weather situation is. I might start pre-rolling these in the future, especially when you're just sort of staying put.
I can do one.
Sure, do it.
Woo!
Amazing. Roll me a d10.
Try my best.
Did you didn't ask your dice in advance to roll a little higher?
No, I did not. But I'll ask this dice.
Amazing.
7.
A 7 is the thunderstorm has calmed to the degree where there's no more lightning striking, but it is now just sort of like constant rain. This is the state at which fire-based spells are dealing half damage.
Oh, boy.
For the time being.
Okay.
And it sounds like you guys are gonna
Yeah.
you're gonna stay the night anyway. It's just sort of our ambiance of anything right now. Niana does walk you. The visibility sort of improves a little bit with the thunderstorm gone. There's a little less wind carrying dust throughout the air, and she walks you to an area probably a couple hundred feet outside of the camp, where it takes you a little bit just because there is still some dust being kicked up in the air before you sort of see it. But there are 4 ships that kind of stylized like Viking longboats. They're very thin and long ships, but that are relatively large. They each have like one big mast and sail in the center that is currently the sail is not up, of course. And the kind of key distinguishing feature of these ships beyond that is that they have sort of at the front of the ship, instead of like the phoenix, I forget what the sort of what the word is for like the little iconography that's often the iconography at the front of the ship, like the lady who's in a weird position. Instead of that, there's actually 2 giant horns that are sort of poking out of the edge of the ship that almost themselves run 10 feet long outside of the ship themselves, and they do not look decorative. They look functional. As this rain proceeds, all of the ships look relatively identical. You can see that one of the ships does have a slightly different coloration in the mast, in the sail rather, but you can't see any iconography because it's currently tied down. But they are sort of arranged in a bit of a diamond pattern when they're parked. And currently they are, because I think this might be of interest to Mouse, like in the conversation of how do ships land, they're sort of just like set down in the sand. They have these like wooden buttresses almost that are keeping it balanced, and a lot of sand has sort of been blown into the side or moved into the side to kind of create dunes that are holding it up, to the point where it's really difficult to know how deep the ship is or how many decks there are. But you can see that there's only 2 decks, the top deck and the bottom deck. But that it's almost like it's just been set down in a bucket of sand.
Does it feel like more like something that travels via sail, or does it have something closer to turbines like the starship?
I would say immediately you don't know the answer to that, but when you are brought onto the deck of one of the ships, you find technology that is similar to the Elsa's procession. There is this sort of like a dial of sorts, a large circular platform that has a number of gems beset into it. That almost acts like a fuel gauge in a way. Some of the very few of the gems seem to be lit up right now, and you would know that to be sort of a method of fueling a ship that would sort of just make it levitate, and that it would be propelled by the wind generally. But she brings you onto the deck of the ship and sort of says, I don't know if you've all done this before, but I believe the way it's been explained to me is that you just sort of lay your hand here, and she sort of indicates the center of this dial, an area that does not have any gems set into it. Lay your hand here, release any sort of arcane energy you have, and then it just sort of absorbs it, as far as I understand.
Does it value like spell level, or is it just any spell helps power it?
I don't know. I'm not in that realm of things. I would say Mouse roll me an Arcana check.
Mouse knows that cantrips can't fly planes.
Yeah.
Or maybe she doesn't. So
I would say you throw a cantrip into it just to see, and you see that none of the gems don't even blink. Like there's no fluctuation in it at all.
Do they have anyone here who seems to also be a caster trying to help fill these, or
No, not presently.
The recovery squad has a few casters in it, but yeah, I don't think they might be exhausted. They might have used up their
It's also the
spell.
morning. It's probably typical practice to unload what you don't use at night.
I always wanted to be a battery.
Next D&D character.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of just want to know what happens.
Same.
Same.
Or do it at the same time, Mouse.
Or
Joy.
one of us should go now, and the other should wait until right before bed when we come spell done.
I can.
I will. Oh, go ahead.
Niana just says, I can bring you back whenever you want. It's not that far.
I will throw just a guiding bolt. I'll lay my hand down and cast a leveled spell.
Okay. For simplicity's sake, there are there are 7 large stones that are set into this this dial, and as you cast a leveled spell into it, one of the stones already seems to be glowing pretty brightly, and it seems to be perhaps at like max capacity. But you cast a level 1 guiding bolt, I assume.
Yeah.
And you see a second gem start to ever so slightly glow. Flint, roll me an Arcana check.
All right.
Okay.
A million.
25 was actually the DC I was giving you for a more
Wow.
accurate prediction. I was gonna give you a soft prediction if you rolled lower, but with a 25, if it only gained that much kind of luminescence from Mouse's sort of basic spell, you think that this ship at maximum capacity should probably hold like 1,000 levels of spells.
1,000.
Um,
How, I guess we don't have anyone here who knows how the ship works. I was going to ask how many of these gems does it take to like fly home?
you just sort of like say that out loud, perhaps, and Niana just sort of says, I think we're trying to get this one up to 3.
3, and we've got 1.
So yeah, it's taken some time to get there. Initially, we were spreading it across all the ships, but we decided to just sort of focus on one, just because it's going to be at this pace. If we fuel all the ships at the same time, we're going to be here for another year. If we, well, anything you can do to help, I think the general would appreciate it.
I will, since I have some available. Do something a little risque. I'll put a level 3 in.
Sure. I mean, any spell you put in seems to scale with the level that you put into it. So you're able to sort of discern that, just sort of using the knowledge that Flint internalized before, is that it would be 1,000 spell levels collectively to bring this up to a full 7 gems.
Will bring us up to a sweet 6. Second level spell going right in there, baby. Amazing. It's almost like I don't have any first level spells left, dude.
Yeah. In the future, when we do this, we'll just sort of assume that like you tell me a number of spell slots and we'll just sort of exhaust them. But for the time being, you all contribute a collective 6 levels of spells. And, you know, progress is made, but you can see that it's still slow going. And you imagine that, I would say Aesop sort of thinks back and, knowing the limitations of the recovery squad, can see how disruptive it would be to lose your fuel reserves en route to a location like this. They probably were expecting to be able to return with what they had, because refueling like this is unsustainable. And I feel like now's as good of a time as any to take a quick break, perhaps.
Sure.
So we'll come back and figure out what you're all doing.
Alrighty, bye.
Otta and Mouse learn what dabbing is.
Yes. In the
Start a
fantasy,
choreographed dance number.
yes, in the fantasy of Ventus, the Left Stars have invented dabbing. Anyway, we're back. So, you all are escorted from the longboats. Still sort of like the early afternoon sun, as Niana is just sort of like walking with you in this moment and says, so, what do you think of the general's disposition?
Actually, kind of happy he was open and honest with us. But there's a lot more happening on the island, and we just need to figure out what kind of part we can play.
Hardak, the general, she sort of corrects herself. Very much respects your father, and I think your family name carries some weight. If you all were anybody else, I think you wouldn't be getting the civilian treatment. You'd be getting the intruder treatment, perhaps. Nothing. She sort of looks to sort of reassure the rest of the party. Like, not that, we hurt people around here, but sometimes you have people who are intercepting or damaging the mission, and you need to work around that. So I think that there's opportunity here if you wish to pursue it, but it will be hard to get him to say or give his support out loud.
Do you think you guys need support here, Niana?
She sort of pauses, not like an abrupt pause, but just sort of like a stare at the sunrise sort of moment, before she turns towards a group. I'm just gonna ping over here. A group of like younger minotaurs that are currently like undergoing some really basic training with your mother. And she sort of turns to you and says, we want to just keep everybody safe, and it's becoming increasingly hard to do that. The things have been getting worse since our arrival, and so it's not clear if this is a... She sort of... The DM knows what she wants to say, but she's sort of pausing because she's not sure if she should say it. Give me an insight check. 16. There's a bit of like... you can't get the strongest concrete sense of it, but there is doubt. There's doubt that the mission will succeed.
If we decide to head back, we can always vouch for support back home. Whether that would be received well here or not, it's not really what is my concern out of that possible route. It's more of whether you guys actually need it.
I don't know that the general would ever condone that sort of ask. And I don't know that anybody would receive it. I think the question that many of us ask ourselves as we are well into our... I've lost count how many weeks we've been here. Well into this trip. As we ask ourselves, at what point do we surrender the island to whatever is plaguing it, quarantine it? I think if the ships had been refueled, if the ships are refueled, there's a chance that that might happen. So, if you all are helping to refuel a ship, and I am to take the younglings back to Consonance for safekeeping, the expectation is that I will return with the batteries needed to refuel the ships so that if the General needs to make a difficult call, that we can make that call.
Well, I think you gave me a lot to think about on that one, but I appreciate the honesty.
So a thing that's been on my mind is what is the reason for trying to save this island? Like, are there people that generally call this place home, or does it provide some resource to Ventus, or what is the downside to just like letting the elementals just plague this island? And
Well, I think the position is a little bit more nuanced. Sometimes we arrive at a island and help to negotiate a sort of treaty or help to calm the nerves of those who from their more survivalistic instincts are just sort of looking for a safe place to call home. So there's, you could say, a humanitarian effort in that, of helping the primordials in their search for belonging in this world. But there's also a fear of the sort of, this is the more Ventus government position, but there's a fear of the primordials' influence and spread throughout Ventus itself, and if this isn't contained or dealt with, and it blows over to the coast, for lack of a better word, then what does that mean for the citizens on the island? Nobody calls this island a home, although that's the other strange nature of this as well. This island and the activities that are happening here are... Well, Aesop could tell you, when we were last here, there was no vegetation at all.
No.
I wonder if we could save this place, could it be habitable? Could Ventus expand into it? Could some people who wish to make, who need land or who need somewhere to settle, could they come here and make this island their home? So there's a lot of implications that we're serving, but it's sort of not our call to... Well, it's not my
just
call.
making sure we're not, here just beating out some elementals for no reason. Sounds like there's good reason.
There's a lot of mixing between the different elements here too, which is not usually common or fun to realize or see.
It's, in a way, it's the root of elemental conflict, is that some things like water and fire are on the opposite ends of the spectrum, and they have a inherent anger towards one another, and we try to find ways to separate them in these instances. But water and earth typically don't have that challenge. The natural enemy to earth is air, but the storm also doesn't seem like it's quite the same as what we've dealt with as far as the air folk are concerned.
Yeah.
Y'all's time on the island. Like, have you seen any evidence of any other non-elemental presence on the island? Like any other echoes of habitation of any sort?
She sort of like thinks for a moment and then looks over to Aesop and says, I believe T-Rock said something of that nature, or that was his reigning theory before he set off. I'm not quite sure where that theory was rooted in or what he claims to have seen, but there must be. At least that's the belief of many of us.
Maybe he's holed up with them or something. I don't know. It's a good question to ask, though.
My brain went to brainwashing theories at play, and essentially there has to be someone to be doing it. If it's centered on this island, then odds are they're already here.
Ooh.
Sometimes I don't know if that's Jacob's dramatics or Drada's dramatics.
No, that's just Drada.
Fair.
I said completely straight-faced.
Your friends are strange.
Yeah, well, we work very well together, as hopefully Eridanen has become honest about, hopefully.
She nods.
So, thinking back on the Stormcrow, and when we fought that like corrupted version of Ludum, did they share any like visual like similarities? Like, I think I remember like Ludum being like sort of corrupted in some sort of like black smoke or something like that surrounding him. I might be mixing up some of the descriptions of the Neptus gem, but
roll me an intelligence check. Okay. Ludum, there was one of the distinguishing features that was strange, was a more physical and tangible thing, was that it seemed to be an elemental that was bleeding. Like there was like a little bit of like, you never really closely inspected it, but there was like an oily nature to it. And I think, I mean, I don't know how much I revealed as a DM, but I know that Ludum's character sheet was referred to as a necromental. So there was like a little something extra happening with Ludum, is what I would say you would glean with a 21. But you wouldn't be surprised to know, or to I mean, corruption of body may be adjacent to corruption of mind. You're not sure. You'd have to, what you witnessed with the Stormcrow, there's no parallels, but if you keep this in mind, you may discover parallels later. You're not sure.
Yeah, I just trying to think through if I think whatever that elementalist or whatever that corrupted Ludum, if some sort of similar magic could be being used against the elementals here, I guess is the
Almost like hear that they're being mind controlled, hypnotized. It's almost more like the elementals don't have any control of what they're doing here.
Niana, who's still here, but looks like she needs to return to her duties soon. She's a little antsy, but says that seems to be what's been reported, but without being able to communicate with them, it's hard to confirm that. You know, they could be rabid, for lack of a better word.
Do you know what the thing is that they want me and Drada to talk to? Might help our decision in figuring out how we can support.
Roll persuasion check.
Yeah.
Okay. She says, it's not really my call to say, but I understand that there's some kind of elemental that's been spotted sort of holing up somewhere, which just sort of indicates a more sentient defensive behavior. It seems like a less aggressive than what we've seen in the past.
Do you know by chance if it's an earth elemental?
I'm not aware.
Okay.
But there's been arguments to try to send Captain Foundry to go speak with it, but she's one of our few casters, and so every bit of energy to pour into these ships has been sort of kept safely here in camp.
Well, I mean, of course, we can talk about this with Hardak too. This could be one of the things we can help with. If we...
I mean, this is probably what Hardak intends to share with you
Right.
in more detail, should you accept. But, because if you sort of looking at both Aesop and Drada speak primordial, it's a lead that hasn't been able to be chased yet, and people are willing to help in that effort. I'm especially people who he can't technically boss around. I'm sure that there's information to be learned.
Yeah. Well, we won't distract you any longer. We appreciate the walk over here. I think we'll head back to the tents, get out of the rain.
Well, if you do leave, just come say goodbye. But I'm generally in charge of keeping the camp safe while Foundry pours her reserves into the ship, and Eridarin is out scouting.
Right.
So I'll be around.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Of course. And she turns and leaves. You guys are now just sort of at the outskirts of the camp, looking inwards at the activity. The rain has subsided a little bit, and now it's more of a kind of like quiet afternoon. Yeah, in all the time that you've spent talking and meeting and eating breakfast and things like that. Early afternoon.
So I think as a party, we have roughly 66 spell levels per long rest. and I think we need to put into this ship in the realm of 285 before we can leave. So we're at like 4 and some change long rests.
I'm only going to correct you because you don't know how much Foundry and the others are pouring into this.
That's fair.
You don't know how your spell levels scale with the ships at all.
Yeah, if they're contributing a bunch, then that might shorten that number. Long rests are 2 days or 3 days?
2 days.
2 days, okay.
Nice math, though.
So if it's just us, take us somewhere in the realm of 8 days. But
I don't think your math is lining up with my math. I don't think you have the exact scale of how, like,
okay.
yeah. That I'll tell you, and maybe I misdescribed it, which would be on me. But between you, I'll just go ahead and say, between you and the other spellcasters at camp, there's a collective 150 spell slots per day, or per long rest, I should say. And you would know that there's over 600 slots needed to get 3 more gems, or to get the fuel you need to fuel the 3 gems.
Okay. All right, so we need 600 spell levels, and we're getting 150 per long rest.
And that's a rough amount. I'm not
Sure.
giving you precise things.
Fair enough.
So
Oh, go ahead.
go for it. No, go for it. Go for it.
Why do I feel like helping fuel this ship and going back home might be the best option for us? It's not how anyone else is feeling. Because if we do this, it gives Captain Foundry the chance to go out and talk to them. And they already have scouts looking out for my dad. So I guess we could join them, but we don't really know the terrain like they do, unfortunately.
I mean, I feel like we're here. You don't think we should try to do more? Seems like a shame to
Yeah.
just sit here for a week or two, fueling a ship and turning around and just
Going back
immediately
home.
leaving.
Yeah.
I'm more inclined to agree with Flynn. And I think Aesop, that is like maybe the long-term smarter choice, I guess. But I don't know if we
Sorry, go
came
ahead.
all this. Sorry, thank you. Sorry, if we came all this way, it feels weird to like if we're gonna do the thing, let's do the damn thing and let's help all the way out.
Yeah.
And also, again, we came here with a 2-part goal. 50% of it has been achieved. Now we have more information on the other 50%. So it feels like a next step.
Yeah. I also feel like, potentially, selfishly for us, it does seem like there's just a lot going on with the elementals right now that we don't have a full picture of. I wonder if we'll learn a little bit more about what's happening here. That,
Also, like, or sorry, Mouse, you were gonna say things. Go.
I was just gonna say that we don't know. Like, I don't have a good understanding of how powerful, how much contribution the Rempe can do here. And I know, Aesop, that when things go well, you can be very persuasive. Perhaps you are the best one to go talk to the elementals.
Yeah.
Andrada.
No, it's mostly Aesop, but
I mean, I don't want to undermine your abilities at all, and I
will happily transcribe for everyone else so they understand the conversation. but I should not be talking.
We
I was
have
just
dinner
being an
at the
ass.
Tournament of Tales.
Anyways,
If we need someone to eavesdrop on the elementals secretly,
great. I'm so glad my niche has been found.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
also just like thinking through the timeline, like we're gonna miss Avendir regardless, right?
Yeah, that's what I didn't want to happen. I only say that because what I said initially, because this was for me. This whole thing was to go out here to find my parents and my community, and the longer we're out here, the more I'm gonna feel worse by like feeling like I'm taking you guys out of your own lives and doing what you guys need to do.
I mean,
I
we can take
mean,
turns. We are in this together. Like you're having your protagonist moment. That's cute. You had one already with the tournament of tales, and like then we can back off for a while, and like yeah, we'll go steal the boat back, or we'll find out what the fuck Flint's doing with the crime organization, or we'll go
nothing,
hide
nothing at
somewhere,
all.
or I don't know.
I
Like
mean,
there are things that we can do that I don't know when the next time we're gonna be back here.
yeah, and realistically, you know, Avendir wasn't saying we for sure needed to be with him, and so we'd have kind of sort of just been as, glorified bodyguards. Um, so I feel like, maybe we're doing more important shit here.
And who's to say that when we're done, like, I mean, we don't know where Avendir's gonna be, but we could try to meet him.
Yeah.
I say Clax just speaks up and says, I mean, we could contact Aventir right now if we have anything to ask.
Flax, that's so true. Why have you been so quiet this conversation?
I've just been looking around. you guys got this.
We're inside now, so I will pull out the book. Do we want to ask him or tell him anything?
Maybe just that we won't be back in consonance when he's there, but that we'll let him know when we can meet up later.
I forgot how the book works, so I write in the book, pages used.
Yes, and then the receiving book, the gem will glow until Aventir opens it and responds.
Okay.
Just
So I
like
will
sending
write-
somebody a text message, but it's left unread until they open it.
Then I will write down what Mouse just said and send it off.
Can you summarize that again for me?
Sure. Staying on this island longer than anticipated. We will miss you at Consonance.
Okay. Love Aesop. No.
Yeah, I think I would put a love Aesop at the bottom.
Okay. I was joking. Okay, you close the book and have confidence that the message is sent. I've been doing this on your behalf, but if you could click the item, it should use a charge because there's a set number of pages.
Sure. Let me go to the item. Oh, what? Oh, distance journal. There we go. Perfect.
Looking at the schedule for the auctions and a map, I think if we miss consonants, it's probably going to be pretty hard for us to catch up with him on the first leg of this, because it heads north from consonants for a while and then around. But we could probably meet back up with him in maybe Mistral, Amthras or Mistral, somewhere in that kind of situation. We'd miss basically the first half of it, but if we, wanted to catch up with him and do some, meeting of important people and whatever else.
Clax interrupts and says, "You just want to go back to Mistral to get that book."
I mean, we do need to go to Mistral to get that book.
Do we?
We have to go to Mistral.
It's it is the
I mean,
stop
regardless,
right
like-
before Flamebridge, so we can go meet Drada's folks or
No,
something.
no, that's fine. I love my parents. Allow me to meet them. Anyways, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, Kate Mistral, but like, that's where you can meet up with him there. I mean, I still got shit to do in Continents. Like, if we take a while to meet up with Avendir, we take a while to meet up with Avendir, I guess.
Clax says, like, we can. First things first, we have to get off the island, whether that's happening in a week or that's happening in 2 weeks. I think hard to make plans until that is sorted out.
Well, and he won't be like I think I guess what I'm getting at is we're probably going to miss consonants. Doesn't seem like there's any way we're getting to consonants by the 7th or whatever. And if that's true, I don't think we can manage to meet back up with him until Mistral. And that's not until fall of or 47th of fall. So realistically, because we're missing consonants, we've got like a ton of time. So we might as well do some good here.
We can go to the Cobalt Cave.
The mysterious cave.
You get a response from the book in the short time that you've spent talking amongst each other. Assuming that you open it.
Mm-hmm.
The message reads, "Understood. Glad to hear that you're safe. We are arriving in Consonance in the next day or two. Depending on the Azure Phoenix's location, we can meet you at..." It's sort of like there's like a ... You see like a pause in the writing. It seems like it's playing it in almost real time as if he had written this.
Right.
And it says, "Dusklight, Vind, Flamebridge, or any of the port cities. There's work to be done, but I respect if you have other priorities."
Do we feel like we need to respond to that, y'all?
Maybe once we learn a little more, we can let him know. I think the main thing is to let him know we're not going to be in consonants. And we've done that. I feel like if I were you, I'd want to go after your dad. But maybe our skill set is better suited for
I
having
mean,
discussion.
we still have not officially registered as a guild of any sort. That being said, the closest thing that we can describe ourselves as is an adventuring party. You know what does not seem like an adventuring task? Filling up batteries for 5 days. So like, yeah, we have casters and that's cool and we can help a little bit, but you have a dad. It's okay to want to find him.
Yeah.
Then your main character arc is done, but like for now.
We've exhausted Aesop's entire backstory.
Until there's another elemental incursion and his parents go off and
And
do
then
something.
it begins again, but
That's fine.
Clax,
Hey, maybe if we save this island and it becomes very inhabitable, they'll like give us like a castle here.
We can have our guild base be here.
Yeah.
You
make everyone travel to find us. Perfect.
I mean, if we can make it habitable, I know some people looking for an island.
I can actually think of a couple as well.
Who would that be, Mouse?
I mean, me. I'm looking for an island. That's what I'm doing here.
Fair.
Why are you looking for an island?
We have too many people.
Oh.
Yeah, that's how I ended up here, right? Fern and Button and I were looking for a new island.
Well, I
Not
don't
at
want
all.
to.
No,
I
we
don't
have
want.
not gone over this.
I don't want to speak for the group. However, we knew you came over here, but we didn't know why. I'm sorry that's happening back home.
Like, how crowded is crowded? Like, is it bad?
I mean, in all things, there are balance, and we have grown to where we are wearing on what nature can provide for us.
Like resources dwindling.
Yeah, things get harder to find when there are too many people to provide for.
That's true.
How many people? Like, how big is your island? Like, is this island big enough?
I mean, we haven't explored it all, and honestly, it's a little deadly at the moment. But I think any island is great.
Even more reason to save the day. So, I think it's
Sounds like a
decided. We're
plan.
staying and we're saving things. Do we go save your dad, or do we go talk to the elementals?
I feel like personally, I am good at one of those things. However, it is my father that we are talking about here.
Just to say that talking to this elemental could not lead us to your dad.
Yeah, I, player and Aesop, thinking strategically, trying over emotions, think that they have a location for this elemental that we can at least go to. So it'd be better to get to them than trying to roam around looking for my dad. As of what we know right now, DM.
I decided I would roll the weather this time, and it's clear skies.
Of
You
course.
also can't roll
Crazy
above
how that
10 then.
happened. What'd you roll?
I still rolled on the weather table, but I rolled a 10, so that's clear skies.
Oh, there you
Can we
Alright.
go again, like tomorrow?
If you want. You
Can
can't
we
blame
do a
me.
thing where we have you and a player roll, and then whatever, like it's an advantage situation, and with whatever's better just wins, just for fun.
If you can justify that in some
Can't.
in some way that indicates that you can control the weather, and I mean I will say this is
I, Jacob, work for a Jewish film festival, and I'm a half Jew, and there are people who think that my people control the weather, so therefore.
okay. That's not quite where I was going, but yes. I think I did hint at this, but when you were traveling with Eridarin and you took the stealthy approach, there was, I think I made you roll twice, and it sort of affected the ability to avoid danger. But it doesn't necessarily affect the weather. But that's here nor there, because that's whenever you leave this camp, and whatever approach you take when you leave this camp.
Are we basically just hanging out here regardless for the day, and then dumping our spells in before we go to bed, and then heading out tomorrow?
I'll say that you've been given the freedom to walk about the camp and talk to whomever you wish to in this circumstance. So if you want to talk to anybody to inform your decisions or just like catch up with folks, then they are available.
Have we decided? I personally think we should go the elemental route, y'all, but that's me.
I mean,
We
if
would
you're comfortable
agree.
with it, I think it's seems like what we'll be better at. It's just a question
Also, I
of
love
urgency.
having a destination and not wandering aimlessly. That's after this past couple days, that sounds great.
Plus, your dad's like a badass, right? Like he's probably fine.
Oh yeah, he's about Hardak's size, and strength. So he's he can take care of himself in normal circumstances. Mouse, what do you think?
I agree. I think this is the right approach.
Okay. I can go over to Hardak's tent if y'all want to join me or go off and do something else.
You know, I don't often get like a full day to just work on stuff um, around our busy schedule usually. So I may take the day to work on my breastplate that I'm slowly trying to make.
Don't you? You've only really effectively worked on that when you had access to a forge.
Fair. If I don't have the necessary, no, never mind. That I don't work on.
I'll let you make half progress on like detail work, if you like small pieces, rivets, like creating some rivets and stuff like that, if you want.
Fair. I will make slow progress on my breastplate.
Yeah, you functionally won't ever be able to finish it without a forge, but you can
Sure.
do everything but finish it at half speed. That's not a rule for always. That's just me being nice now because I know you want to. I know you want to. So folks are going to speak to Hardak. Is it just Aesop, or is everybody going?
I will stick with Flint, and I will make my potion of healing.
Okay. You do.
Ada would go with Lisa.
Okay. Remind me. I feel like you bought the supplies for it, and you do have proficiency with herbalism kit. Yes, you do. Okay.
I do. I was just trying to figure out how much total time it was going to take me. Speed reading.
I do have my own crafting rules, but I think. I think I told you that it would be a day. If I recall.
DMG has a day, but
Okay.
for your work rules, whatever those are.
Yeah. We'll say a day for now, but let me revisit it because I've only really done the crafting rules in an informed way when it comes to Flint's crafting, not the potions, which I imagine to be less than what Flint does, or more simple, I should say. Okay, so Drada and Aesop are going to go talk to Hardak. Klax is just going to go like talk up the soldiers and figure out like get a lay of the land from other folks. And might have some insights when you all rendezvous. But Drada and Aesop, you return to the command tent and see sort of Hardak and Niana sort of like peering over the map in the middle of the room before sort of looking up. And in the calm winds, everything's calmed down. That the camp has sort of gotten into a more relaxed state as you guys are spending this afternoon looking around. People are a little bit more relaxed just without the being on edge in the thunderstorm, but now is the time for like reinforcing the tents and mending any damage that was done in the winds, and so the camp is remaining busy nonetheless. But as you two enter the command tent, Hardak sort of, it looks like they were both just sort of staring down at the map, thinking about something, and as you come in, Hardak says, have you come to a decision then?
We're going to help with the elemental, the one that you would like us to talk to route. We believe that we can be more successful in this mission, as there are two of us in the party that not only know primordial but can be very persuasive. And I'll just look at Drada. Give a smile.
I think Drada quickly glances at you, being like, "What?" But also wants to try to like check Hardak's reaction to hearing that news.
Roll me an insight check.
That's pretty good.
You get two reactions. One, it occurs to Drada that Hardak never told you that there was an elemental to speak to. Niana gave you that information. And so Drada picks up on a little bit of making the eyes at Niana, and with the insight check, you see Niana sort of like
Getting everyone in trouble now.
Niana dips her head in resignation a little bit. But he chooses not to make a scene, and sort of like exhales through large minotaur nostrils and says, "Very well. I suppose we could use all the help we can get, if that's how people feel around here." The 27, you can see that you know. He feels a little undermined. But
sure, I think Drada attempts to just jumps in quickly and just goes like, "Yes, we are very excited to help out however we can, and gracious for both your hospitality and communication." And looking over and being like, "We appreciate you for telling us this information, and we're sorry."
There's like just a few seconds of like awkward tension in the air, and he says, "Very well." To the east, he sort of waves you all in towards the map. And I'm going to bring you over to the Savanna Island map. You guys are actually here right now. He says, to the east in this mountain range, scouts have identified a cave that is filled with ice. A very unnatural phenomenon given the environment we're in. And in an effort to investigate it, have been repelled by icy winds. The cave itself seems to resist people coming in, and the theory that some here at camp have is that there must be a presence within the cave that is driving people away from entering it. This type of being is not unknown to us. The combination of some varieties of water and earth elementals could render in a variety of ways, but in this particular case, we believe it to be an... let me scroll up. A creature that we've referred to as a glacial changeling. Foundry speaks of creatures of this nature that inhabit a cave in a way that makes it their layer of sorts. They become the cave. The creature is not an individual so much as it is the icicles on the wall, or the ice, the slippery ice on the ground. It inhabits dark spaces and, well, when we've dealt with them in the past, they've been highly intelligent, unlike your average elemental. But this one repels our approach and does not chase after us as other elementals have. So the reigning theory is that it must be in control in some fashion. So, to that end, as I've said before, you are civilians. I cannot provide you with an escort of any kind. However, if you discover anything that would be useful for our mission, it would be greatly appreciated.
Seems like you have previous experience talking to one of these things. Are they territorial? Do they have wants, needs?
You should speak to Foundry. I have not spoken with these myself.
Okay.
He nods to Niana and says, "Send for her." And she sort of like, in a still perhaps a little shy way after
Me outing her?
after being outed, she dismisses herself with haste.
I understand that you cannot provide an escort. You are but civilians. Are there any supplies we would be willing to take, given that this looks to be a long journey ahead of us?
What would you require?
I mean, my brain went. I'm speaking as I Aesop. My brain went to healing potions because who knows what we're gonna find. But
I was
maybe
thinking,
some
that,
tents.
and I was about to say some sort of cover, so it's easier for us to make camp.
I'm sure we could provide a tent. We don't have a abundant supply of potions to provide.
That's fair and reasonable. We'll take a 10.
We can make that happen.
Deal. That's very gracious, very kind.
And I believe Eridarin already provided you with the footwear necessary. I would advise that while you are driven with purpose, that you still act with caution and make a stealthy approach as you wander through the dunes. It's nice to have footwear if combat does occur, so that you can have your full mobility, but when it comes to long distance travel, the safe approach is the cautious approach.
Have there been any reports in that area of any conflict, activity, anything that we need to worry about in that mountain range?
There's conflict all over the island. The Stormcrows patrol frequently. I will remind you, and I'm sure you heard me loud and clear last time, but if the way, Foundry will speak about the Stormcrows. We'll leave it to her. But do not engage.
Yes, we now realized. Thank you.
Otherwise, there's always intermittent danger throughout the land. It's just a matter of whether you happen upon it or if it happens upon you. I suggest always having watches in the nights. I suggest resting as frequently as you can, and not overexerting yourself before returning to camp. If you have a bad first day, it's best to turn around and start fresh, because the journey ahead may be long. Eventually, Fentry walks in. This is an individual who you haven't really met yet, but you may have seen sort of throughout the camp periodically. Let me pull up her picture. This is a more feminine presenting minotaur that has a full sort of face mask and has like glowing white eyes that are sort of a little irregular from what you've seen before.
Is she one or two-tailed?
One. As far as you know, the only two-tail that are within the recovery squad are you and your father.
Okay.
But Drada, you would recognize this as the more, like when she starts speaking, you would recognize this as the more erudite voice that you spied upon the previous night that was meeting with Hardak. And she walks in and says, "General, I believe I was called upon." And Hardak sort of gestures towards the two of you and says, "Our young son of Tirok has joined our camp over the last couple of days, and they are planning an expedition to this cave that I'm sure you've heard about." And she sort of kind of like cocks her head and like crosses her arms in a way that is a little bit more she doesn't have the same stance that the other Minotaur have, and as you sort of look at her, she her glaive has sort of like different like tribal baubles hanging off of it, like teeth and gemstones, and like there's like a little, what you imagine to be like a little bird skull or something.
Yeah.
And she more shamanistic type.
Right. I'll look at her, and in Primordial, I'll say, much like you, I can also speak the language. And we believe that this is our best way of supporting your guys' mission here on the island.
Drada just throws in at the end. Yeah, agreed.
So Primordial is technically 4 different dialects. It's like depending on which element you're channeling. Are you all?
I'll do Earth.
I think that's what Drada would probably know most as well.
Okay, so like the rumbling avalanche, sort of like guttural sounds, sort of like on the periphery. You see that Hardak is not engaged in this conversation. He just assumes that you guys are taking care of whatever business, and she sort of responds with almost a little bit of a different dialect that sounds a little bit more, just perhaps a little bit more practiced, but also perhaps like a little bit more ancient. In the way that she's, I'm trying to figure out how to describe different guttural sounds, but there's a rhythm to it. There's a candor that she is sort of presenting as she makes these noises and says, "Well, it is a pleasure to meet other learned folks. It is a breath of fresh air compared to some of my peers." Before she returns to speaking in common and says, "General, I think they will do nicely, assuming that they are prepared for the dangers ahead.
I think we are. We've also been told that you know most of the knowledge of these storm crows here, and unfortunately, we didn't know this beforehand. We have fought one and dissipated it.
Well, that's promising. But, as I'm sure the general has told you, and Hardak nods and says, protocol indicates that we do not engage, and the reason for that, as best as we can tell, is that the storm crows are scouts of sorts. They seem to only react to things that react to them. And by making yourself taking a hostile stance towards them, validates that they have found their prey. So generally, unless you have something convincing to offer them, and assuming that they have all of their faculties that they don't seem to have on this island, then you may have luck speaking to them. But in these circumstances, the procedure that we've adopted is to lay low and let them fly by. It may hurt temporarily. It may feel like you're being attacked, but if you don't attack, they won't know that you're there.
Their screeches are awful.
Well,
oh, actually,
if they fly away, you'll hear less of them.
Captain Fentry, I actually did have another question for you. In your time here, have you been able to make contact with any elemental?
I am afraid that she looks at Hardak. Give me an insight check.
God, I'm just destroying the pecking order.
Yeah, I'll let Drada insight this too, because you're part of this conversation.
Asking questions.
Okay. Both of you rolled high enough to know that she's biting her tongue.
Yeah.
She says, I'm afraid that I haven't been able to leave my duties here. But prior to setting up camp, when we attempted to make first contact, I did not have such luck.
Got it.
But is that all? And Hardak says they wanted to know about the glacial changeling.
Yes.
And she said, yes. Well, while I cannot speak for this individual in particular that you'll be meeting, the experience that I've had before was generally quite pleasant. They were, in this particular circumstance, which may not be what you encounter, they were looking for a home to grow in. A glacial changeling is a being that grows within the space that it is in. And so, depending on the depth and volume of the cave, they could grow to be quite large and powerful when they settle. It is said that there are some that conquer entire mountain systems and use that space to reproduce in their way. But when I had spoken to the one on a different assignment, there had been a cave-in that had limited its ability to grow. A cave-in that had been the doing of another earth elemental, and at the end of the day, we had sorted it out as a mistake of sorts, and they were allowed to expand beyond their initial reach. But
Do they have an actual form to them? Like, will we know? I understand just from what I've heard that all the ice that you see is basically them. However, do they actually occupy a humanoid-like form, or anytime you see ice, it's just kind of like you're talking to them?
They are shape-changing in nature. They can embody any part of their system. Their sentience will travel from stalactite to stalagmite, depending on what it's looking at the time.
Right.
So when we did sort out the issue in finality, it did coalesce into a single form as a means of ceremony. It bowed to us before it resumed its spread throughout the caves. So it has the ability to change its appearance in a variety of ways, but as soon as you enter its domain, it is a bit like being in the belly of the beast.
Yes, but it's good to know that most have formalities. But thank you for your knowledge, your wisdom, and it's nice to see another primordial learner amongst our group.
Ooh.
She nods. She has sort of like a, as opposed to a lot of people, that's just like a short nod of recognition. She has sort of like a longer, polite, deeper nod, a half bow almost, as she regards you both and then regards Hardak and walks out. And Hardak sort of turns and says, "So, is it just the two of you, or is your entire party part of this?"
No, they're working on other things right now. But it's going to be our entire group.
He's pausing to think hard about something and says, "I don't know if you consider yourself to be their leader or not.
I don't.
Nonetheless, I imagine that you've inspired them to action. They are your responsibility as soon as you leave this camp. I don't say that to pressure you, but
I've felt it since we've landed, so I understand.
just make sure that you bring them and yourself home safe."
Good thing I know healing, right?
Just get a nice, firm pat on the shoulder.
He gives you a blank stare.
Hey, it's helpful.
Finish your rest, of course. We will prepare a tent and any other supplies we can spare. I will ask Niana what is available.
We'll leave tomorrow morning.
Very well.
We'll be back sooner than you know it. Right, Aesop? Yeah.
Right. Ding.
Right.
He nods in the this conversation is over sort of nod. Not in a you're dismissed, but in a sort of like he turns back to his work.
As I'm walking out with Drada, I'm like, I am not good at this packing order thing. Like, if I was just honest in the beginning, I wouldn't have to call people out accidentally. But now I just.
This is why you gotta like take notes of every conversation you ever had, just so you remember what you can and cannot say.
Also, like, they definitely know what's going on here. I got the
They
vibe.
There's too
There-
much biting of tongues happening.
There was that look. Did you see that between Foundry and
I mean,
Hardak?
I interpreted that more as like
I would
she
say
wants to go out and be more competent, but she's the only spellcaster, therefore she's a battery.
Yeah.
yeah, I will say with
She's not
the
the only spellcaster.
I'm gonna add that just with the insights and sort of you're kind of building the pieces of the puzzle between Niana's reactions to Foundry's reactions to your mom's reactions. Like there is a growing negative sentiment towards Hardak's leadership. That like people don't know if he's taking the right approach to this, but nobody's really willing to like say it out loud. But also like but you would also know that Hardak is following the tenets of keeping everybody safe. It's like you've maybe picked up on this at some I don't think I've ever said it outright, but the implication is that nobody has died or gotten hurt in the time here. Like it's a very cautious approach that has worked in that sense. But is it the right approach?
Right.
Given the gravity of the situation.
Hope I didn't just like make things awkward between us. Do you think?
I don't know. Not to be like he has bigger fish to fry.
It's true.
But I don't. I think in his brain, you're probably like, oh, great, here's a little side project that might bring some exciting revelations, but if it doesn't, oh well. Like,
Yeah.
don't. Not to be like, you're not the main focus of his right now, but I don't think we are, and I think that's fine.
I just don't want to get anyone in trouble, but I might have done so already. Fortunately.
I mean, it happens. I'm
Yeah.
sure she'll have a really fun conversation with you at a later date, time undisclosed.
Probably. Alright, let's head back.
What were Flint and so Flint was working at a slower pace on the armor, unless there's anything you want to describe with that in mind, or maybe you and Mouse are just sort of having a little crafting sesh in the tent. You want to tell me how that goes?
I think at some point after working on the armor for a while, Flint gets annoyed with the slow progress and not having a forge, and does try to go out and just find like a hunk of wood that he can carve, and just trying to make like a very simple like ring out of wood.
I'm sure that's easy enough if you spend the day on it. Mouse, anything?
Yeah, I think especially like preparing to go back out into the island, she's just working as intently as she can to have a healing potion available. She'll check in with Flint occasionally, but I think it's just a work day.
Okay. Well, eventually you all rendezvous at the camp, or in the tent that you had been sort of set up in. People come around with soup and such to prepare for folks. I will say that you do discover that they do provide some non-vegetarian options now that you've arrived. You don't know where that meat is coming from, but it's and Clax would tell you that it's unseasoned, but it seems to be sufficient for anybody who wishes to have that.
I'll eat it up.
The non-meat portion of it, I imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to be like, you shouldn't be the
Yum.
one saying
Cheat
"I'll
day.
eat it up."
Yeah.
Here on Savanna Island, all your morals and ethics go right out the window.
All gone.
Sometimes you go to a different country and they don't have, like, you go to Argentina. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Except this time you're going to Argentina, but you're being surrounded by your entire family and support system that knows your dietary preferences on this analogy.
And have the same preferences as well. Yeah.
Exactly.
But you're all together.
And we have a tent now?
You
We're
have
getting
you have
a
not
tent.
you have not been given it yet, but you've been promised a tent.
We're gonna be
Anything
living
else
the
we
high
should
life.
like prepare? We've got our new like snowshoes things. We're gonna have a tent. Is there anything else we should take with us?
I mean, if anybody has ideas on like skills I should focus on preparing before our journey, I'm always open to suggestions.
The things that
Yes.
come to my mind are things that'll help us last longer in the world, and anything that can help us go unseen further or less visible. I don't know how helpful those guiding principles are, but
I think the like going unseen is more in the skill set of some of our other party members, but I think goal number 1 is no dead left stars.
Woo!
starting our, we gotta set the bar low, but we're gonna hit that bar.
That's my goal for us.
Yeah, nobody dies that's probably a good high priority. That's a good question. What should I prepare for a journey? How to
I just have my spells. I can't choose.
Yeah.
At some point, a random Minotaur soldier will drop off a package, which includes it's a relatively large tent that Flint can fold. It's sort of like a bundle of long sticks that you'll be able to put into the bag one at a time. It's not something you're going to be able to pull out very easily, as well as like a heavy canvas and tarp. Additionally, you are given what I'm just going to refer to as a supply pack. What this supply pack can do is it can reinforce the tent for 2 days to turn that tent into a temporary safe haven.
Mm.
So it is one long rest out in the wild that you can use one time before it's
critical.
Yeah. So it's I want to be clear. Once it's used because it's not materials you can recover or retrieve. It is like it's reinforcements that by using them they are sort of destroyed.
I mean, that certainly will make me feel a little bit better about, as someone who does have limited resources before they're exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm feeling.
Yeah, thank you, Minotaur. Thank you.
They're gone. They have other work to do.
That's cool. Go be productive. Yeah, is there anything else that we should prep? Or is it just let's get a good night of sleep, everybody?
think it's a good night's sleep.
We can fast forward through this, but Nana does like ask you to exhaust any remaining spell slots before you sleep.
Yes.
If you
I
want to
have
just
So-
20 levels available.
okay.
Wow.
Greg
I
made
have
it
two.
through half of combat unconscious, so
Sorry, I think I heard a different number, but I didn't hear it. Whoa.
I have 3 spell levels. that
Okay.
I will.
I have 2.
Okay.
Okay, and I have 7. Well, okay. I have 2 first level, 2 second, and 1 third.
So that would be
So that would be
9.
9. Thank you.
Yes.
I can't do math.
So that's 23, 2, and 9. I believe.
Yeah.
That is 34.
84.
Yes. You pour those in and feel like you're making some progress, but you know that there's still much more to be done. And you feel like you do. Again, you don't need to take watches tonight, but you may, if there's anybody you wish to talk to or talk amongst each other.
Before we head out, like, is also included in the supplies, like, do we have a map or anything that, like, has guide points? Or, like, I know we were just told it's in the mountains in the east, but we don't really have anything more specific to go off of.
You were not given that in. You were not given that necessarily.
I probably should have asked for a map. Dang it. That's okay.
We can ask in the morning.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I don't really want to leave without one.
Okay.
Do we think I'll need to identify anything while we're out here? I don't think so. I don't know.
I imagine this like a last minute group project in college where we're all like exhausted in the library and just have books and papers strewn all over the library floor trying to figure out what we want to do and prep for the next day.
Is it too late to run out and ask for a map?
You have been given permission to walk about the camp.
Wait.
I will expedite and say that at this time they don't have any extra maps.
Cool. A list of and any like like wayfinding points, like any landmarks to look out for.
Okay, they give you just based on the map, that the sort of preview map they have, they say you'll need to find a way across the river. They recommend going north first, and then past the lake. So like past this lake, there's the first mountain across the river. They give you general directions to which mountain it is, but say beyond that, they don't have any more specifics to give you.
Can I use my cartographer's tools and just like an hour to make a rough copy of their map?
A copy? Yeah, that makes sense.
With the pieces that like would be relevant for us. I'm not trying to like map the whole island.
Yeah, sure.
Let's
That's easy enough. I think they would just allow you to do that.
Mouse, if you have any spells that can get us across the river so we don't have to walk around, it might be useful.
Have one of those flags.
Okay. Let's say I could use a spell slot to get 2 of us over, but that's a pretty high spell slot to use.
I mean, throw me in a backpack, baby.
Draw has practiced for this their whole life.
I will both have another polymorph, and I'm planning to take water walk, so we can walk across water for an hour.
Great.
No, I'm thinking of water breathing. Water walk's not a ritual, is it?
Yes, it is.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Wow. Okay. I only have one ritual spell, so that is
Ugh.
clutch.
Ugh.
That is so clutch.
I know water breathing can be like a ritual, and it's like 8 hours, and
Excuse me.
Just in case the question is ever asked, ritual spells will not recharge airships. Just laying that out there. It's you have to exhaust magic to put energy somewhere else.
I assumed with the cantrips that was true.
yeah, I think I'm gonna skip identify. I don't think that's. And we'll have nights where I can change my spells if needed.
Any? Oh, good.
I'm gonna bring alarm. Since it is a ritual, and we'll be setting up camp out in the wilderness.
Is that a what is the radius of the area for alarm?
That's a good question. Area in range, no more than 20 foot cube. So not a very big radius.
I mean, if there's something that sneaks up on you that you don't see,
yeah, it's gonna get quite close to us.
Yeah.
But it's something.
Do I think two pieces? One, that elementals or this ice cave would be considered a creature?
You would. I mean, I think that I'm not going to make you roll. You would assume that if it has sentience, then it's a creature.
But I probably can't describe it well enough to consider it familiar to me.
Probably not.
That makes sense.
Well, is there anything people would like to do as they are sort of resting and preparing in the evening?
I think Flint would probably be just working on this like small ring that he had been working on, just polishing it up and then trying to carve in some inlays or whatever for focusing magic through. That's about it.
Did you get my message, Art?
I did. I was gonna wait for
sure.
watches. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, do we want to? Let's just. I mean, who wants to take a watch?
I was gonna stay up the first few hours in the first watch to write a message off to Avendir and hopefully it's received well.
Okay. You can message me what that is.
Yeah.
Thanks. Unless there's anybody really eager to talk to Flint will probably just enjoy the fact that it's the last night they'll get where they don't have to take watches in a while. And
Drado was pondering, sneaking off and listening in again, and then fully went, I want to sleep for once. Let's do that.
Is the sky clear enough that I can consistently see the stars?
Why don't we roll a good T20 to see if that's true? Because we haven't done weather tonight.
I asked, so I will roll.
Ugh. That's a number that's not. I have to actually look at my notes. Hold on. Do roll me a D10. This is not on the weather table.
Rock's fault.
Everything attacks, and we all just dumped all of our spell slots.
No.
Good news, there's like 50 well-trained minotaurs around.
Literally.
I would say it's up to Mouse to tell me how you would engage with this. I'm assuming that maybe this is like a moment of solitude, that you're taking a solo watch in this moment, perhaps, and you are peeking your head up to the sky, and the weather is clear, but you also hear the sound of a fight at the edge of camp. The sound of like a growling beast of some kind, and the sort of like soft shouts of minotaurs who are coordinating in this moment. Give me an insight check. It's happening like maybe 50 feet from you, and you don't have clear line of sight on it.
Sorry, I think I misclicked history. You can use either dice.
Oh, that was almost a double one. I'll use the insight. You don't hear the sense of panic. This is like, you don't know exactly what it is, but it's sort of like a bunch of wolves or something that is being shooed away from the camp. But it does strike you before you turn your attention to the stars if you'd like to, but it does strike you as like, oh, like fauna, like non-elemental beasts are being slain outside of the camp. Do that as you will, but you look at the sky and it is clear.
Okay. Thinking to the times I've done this in the past, is using my quill form. I've described it as like a beam of starlight kind of leaves me to enter the sky that then travels to reach down at someone else. Is that visual enough to draw attention to the camp?
I don't think so. It's sort of just like a homebrewed, flavorful description, not a... I'm not only the precedent I'm setting is that not only can you not accidentally draw attention, but you can't intentionally draw attention. It's an effect that you see, but not necessarily an effect that other people see.
Awesome. Then I will go off and find some space and 10 minutes and spread out my star map and place some stones in a kind of constellation on the ground that's meaningful to me as I kind of reach my voice up to the stars and hope I can get a message to my friend Olive.
Okay. You feel that connection push through the storm. Can you roll me D100?
Sure.
It feels like there's a slight interference, but you feel the connection establish. When you're sort of looking up at the sky, roll me an additional perception check. Okay. You tell me like how you react to this right before sending a message to your friend, but you're sort of comparing the stars down that you've laid down on stones on the ground, sort of creating, like almost pre-planning the network that will bounce off. But when you look up and the beam sort of shoots out of you, you realize that some of those stars aren't there, and you're having to sort of ping off of stars that you weren't expecting to. Not all of them, but some of them. It's a little... And it's clear that they're missing, not that you've got the wrong sector of stars. You just don't see them. It could be the storm cover, it could be something else. But you do establish connection.
I note that to think about for later, but don't overthink it in the moment. I'm still a little afraid of what I might see if I look too closely. But I will reach out my voice and say, Olive, there's a new island. It isn't inhabitable yet, and it's close to a lot of people, but it could eventually be an option.
Olive, who you know as a star sage of sorts, would obviously be awake at this hour, and in a voice that has a sort of bright expression across its tone, responds in a way that sounds encouraged and says, "That's certainly promising. I will let the council know." There's sort of a pause. And she says, "I think the sooner that we can explore this opportunity, the better." In her normal fashion, she sends her own quill form to you to continue the conversation. Ugh, that was close. Oh, wait, no, sorry. I read that as 94, and I was like, that's really close. But it's fine. You receive a follow-up message that you can respond to that says, "Somebody from the mainland, Ventus," there's sort of like a question mark attached in a way, has come asking questions. There's an eagerness to their voice. I think we have something they want, and I fear what will happen if we say no.
Is that the end of the message?
Yes.
Who is it? What do they want? I hope everyone's safe. I just want to be able to help.
She responds again. I don't know the details of who, per se, but news of your Fern's airship solution, the crystal that she harvested to create the engine, it seems that they find value in it. They wish to replicate it.
That was her messaging me, right? I get a free reply?
Yes.
Cool. We've been secret from outside contact so long. I'm sorry we brought attention to the island. We'll do what we can to find a solution. Be safe and contact me when you can.
Although I don't think she could do the quill form again. As the connection wanes, you just sort of feel a sense of acknowledgement come through as the ray of light sort of fades. That feeling of there's a lot that I imagine is going through Mouse's mind right now, but I would say that there's also just the element of this interference. The way you established this connection just sort of gives you goosebumps in a way. Give me a Arcana check. I know, I know I'm making you roll a million things that you're not good at. Yeah, you're not sure. Something strange. But you push through it, and that's what matters for now.
I think Mouse would seriously struggle to fall asleep, but knows how important rest is at this point in time. And so eventually I'll make my way back and go to bed.
All right.
That fucking Arcana guy. I know it.
Last call for evening activities. All right. We will call it there because it's almost 10 o'clock. And we will begin the next game after completing a joyous, well-needed long rest.
That's drama. Oh my god, Mouse, no!
We'll figure out what that means later at some point.
We're gonna have to kill a purple man, y'all.
It might not be our